Ladies and gentlemen, welcome and thank you all for joining us today. It gives me great pleasure to speak to you at the launch of this year's Safety Report, a publication addressing the key topics of the core of everything that we do here at DNV, safety at sea. As we all know, the global maritime industry is on a journey of transformation. Decarbonization is the dominant theme of over time and will continue to be so over the next decade and beyond. This is already leading to significant changes to the engines that power our ships, the fuels that they run on, and the systems that operate them. But we are just getting started, and the road ahead is full of uncertainty. New engine types, alternative fuels, and more advanced digital systems offer many solutions, but they also bring increased uncertainty and new risks. We in the maritime industry need to meet these challenges, but it is crucial that we embrace safety as we do so. As this report shows, negative safety trends were registered in 2022, reminding us that more work needs to be done to improve current safety standards and to develop new standards for the future. Although it may not be possible, we aspire to bring the number of safety incidents to zero. When we think about safety, a huge amount of effort is quite rightly committed to the development of rules, guidelines, and procedures. However, the effect of these is minimized if they are not embraced by individuals or if they don't become ingrained in the culture of companies. This is why improving safety standards means placing people at the heart of everything that we do. A deeper awareness of human behavior will lead us to a more comprehensive understanding of new technologies. This will help us to develop training programs that are safe, reliable, and considerate of the day-to-day realities of those who depend upon them most. On a wider scale, it is equally vital that we approach maritime safety from an industry-wide perspective, with a spirit of collaboration. As we know, the transition to new engines, new fuels, and more advanced digital systems is not straightforward and may be accompanied by machine failure and accidents. As an industry, we will benefit from sharing the experiences and lessons learned so that we all continue to move in the right direction. This will ensure that every mistake can be learned from, and we all continue to maintain progress while, much more importantly, minimizing the risk to human life and the environment. We at DNV encourage collaboration between all stakeholders in the maritime world. We urge all players in the industry to put aside their competitive instincts and contribute to improved safety standards for all. Although the maritime industry is on the cusp of exciting change, this brings with it uncertainty. Navigating these waters requires effective leadership. It requires teamwork. It requires a new way of thinking. Placing safety at the heart of our actions will help us to embrace the transformation while always remembering that nothing will ever be more important than the safety of our people, the vessels, and the environment. Thank you once again for your attention today, ladies and gentlemen. I now hand you over to Richard Clayton at Lloyd's List, who will moderate our panel discussion today, where these topics will be discussed in more detail among some of our industry's foremost safety experts. Thank you, and over to you, Richard.
Thank you, Knut. Hello, my name is Richard Clayton, Chief Correspondent at Lloyd's List and lead author for the Lloyd's List DNV Maritime Safety Trends report. Today's panel discussion addresses a key issue in shipping's transition to decarbonisation. What are the implications for maritime safety at each and every stage of the process? Safety is an integral part of all transactions, so this discussion is indeed timely. It comes as a Maritime Safety Trends report reveals a decade of data covering the years 2012 through to 2022. There are still pockets of concern. 10 years ago, piracy was grabbing the headlines, no longer. The number of ships colliding with other ships or striking static objects like harbour walls has become fewer. The number of casualties from war or conflict was minimal until, of course, 2022. One category that remains far too high is machinery damage and failure. However, this safety report is not satisfied with just the number of casualties. It seeks to go deeper, to ask why casualties happen at all. And among the reasons, perhaps the chief reason, is a poor safety culture, not only on board ship, but also across the company. Humans still play a critical role in the operation and management of digital systems. Therefore, adequate training, awareness, and accountability among the workforce are crucial in mitigating human errors and ensuring safe usage of digital systems. Now, this discussion will delve into what it means to cultivate a robust and resilient safety culture, both on board and ashore, and why the management of change, whether to decarbonisation or anywhere else, is crucial to developing a sense of ownership in the team. So my team today are Øystein Goksoir, Head of Department Safety Advisory at DNV, Catherine Ilya Nerland, Senior Principal Engineer at DNV, Himanshu Chopra, Managing Director, Anglo-Eastern Ship Management, UK, Jeff Parfitt, Head of Safety and the Environment at the Nautical Institute, and Torkel Soma, Chief Scientist and Partner at SAFER, the organizational safety business. So let's get to the questions. The first question is for Jeff and Himanshu. Jeff, what are the key elements of a strong safety culture in the maritime industry, and how can these elements be effectively implemented and communicated?
Safety culture is an organizational culture that places a high level of importance on safety beliefs, values, behaviors, and attitudes. There needs to be a strong, committed onboard safety management system and an accident prevention program on board. But management leadership from the office is absolutely vital. It needs to be driven from the top so that this is passed on to the vessel. And frankly, there needs to be uncompromising acceptance on board of the safety management system. There needs to be a quality, effective training, a commitment to onshore training as well as on board. It needs to be effective. There needs to be a measurement and continuous improvement of the implementation of the safety management system on board by way of auditing, external and internal. And in my view, the training standards need to be more than the recommended minimum. So there needs to be measurement and continuous improvement on board, and that needs to be visible, whether it's frequency of drills and the efficiency of crews, relentless repetition of essential drills works. There needs to be a focus on learning with a no-blame culture. So when there is an incident, the crew shouldn't be frightened of reporting. They should be encouraged to report, and perhaps remedial training rather than a blame culture. So continuous reflection and a visible commitment to safety all enhances the onboard safety management system and the company safety culture. And this needs to be across their fleet. It can't be a variable from ship to ship. That shouldn't be allowed to happen.
Thank you very much. Himanshu, can I come to you? You've got a number of ship owners in your portfolio and hundreds, if not thousands, of seafarers. What are the elements of a good safety culture for you?
Thank you, Richard. I think the preamble of the ISM code has got it right, where it states that the cornerstone of good safety management system is commitment from the top. And this actually applies to safety culture as well. It is vital that the top management understands and appreciates that their commitment to safety and loss prevention can never be compromised. Leadership must be visible, consistent, and continuous. It must go beyond slogans and taglines. It is about taking the difficult decisions when there is a conflict between profits and safety goals. Employees will almost always be able to see the difference between genuine commitment and lip service. Ultimately, the sustainability of a safety culture depends entirely upon how well it permeates through the fabric of the organization, the ways in which things are actually done. Policies, procedures, and checklists can all lay down the framework of the expectations of the company, but eventually, it is up to the seafarer and the office staff who decide whether to follow the framework or not. And various strategies and programs are required to ensure that the commitment of top does not get diluted at the sharp end. Another important element for a strong safety culture, as you also mentioned, is effective communication. The way seniors talk and, more importantly, listen to their juniors in any organization is extremely critical to the well-being of the safety and organizational culture. As Peter Drucker said, the important thing in communication is to hear what isn't being said. And it is for this reason that open and frank conversations are needed to encourage a strong safety culture. Thank you.
Thank you, Himanshu. Thank you, Jeff. I want to move on a little bit to emerging technologies. As we all know, the shipping industry now being encouraged to get deeper into things like automation and digitalization. Øystein, can I move across to you? How can these emerging technologies be leveraged to improve safety in the maritime industry?
Yeah, thank you, Richard. As we are all aware of, there is two transformations ongoing in shipping. It's decarbonization and then it's digitalization. And I think many of us, most of us now understand that decarbonization also sort of leads to digitalization, because decarbonization and compliance means that we have to transfer quite a lot of data from the vessels now to monitor the performance on decarbonization. And then this drives digitalization and also quite a lot of new systems and technologies on board the vessels, because all these new fuel and technologies will be quite novel, and they are also quite highly digitalized. So this is can be seen as a sort of a concern. We are talking about the safety gap, which has to be closed, but there can also be an upside. The upside is, of course, that when you transfer data and performance data and condition data to shore, then this can be analyzed and monitored, and you can actually give active feedback and to the vessel on how to perform safely. So one example is, for example, on navigation. We see now that you can do fixed routing, safe routing, and if there is a deviation, then there will be an alarm ashore, and they can contact the vessel and advise on navigation before an incident happened. Another thing is, of course, that you can do health check of machinery, safety critical systems like stability, and intervene and help the vessel to meet this challenge. We heard now that machinery damage is increasing in the industry, and condition monitoring is available, and then you can be proactive on this and intervene before an incident happens. That's a good example. Also on risk management, we see now that safety barrier reporting, data-driven safety barrier reporting is taking place. We are working a lot with that in DNV as well, with our customers. And we see now that some customers want to, for example, monitor and have a KPI safety dashboard on watertight doors. It could be fire in engine rooms. And we also see now that when we test and implement novel fuels like hydrogen, ammonia, it is, for example, possible to do digital checklists on the bunkering procedure and report this to a barrier model so that you are sure that the procedures are followed and that you manage the risk of the bunkering. These are examples.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Torkel, I wonder if I can come across to you. What have you found in your research about digital technologies and maritime safety?
Yeah, like we've heard already, that we are starting to know what a good and mature safety culture looks like. Across different research in different industries, we have found the same traits. So it's converging towards one common description of what a good safety culture is like. But the challenge we have is that it's really difficult to implement this in a maritime setting, where people are distributed all over the world. We have, until now, had a challenge with offline. So it's difficult to reach everyone through video or technology. But now this is changing, and everybody have their personal device, the smartphone, and we can start to reach them in a better way with better internet, and that opens up also a possibility to build culture in a very different way than we have done in the past, where we can reach everybody with more stimulating training content, build understandings, challenge cognitive biases people have on safety, and then also collect data on this. And that's something that is really important because we want to be more proactive, and that is challenging in itself because it's really easy to be reactive, just to wait for accident to happen and react on it. But if you want to be proactive, you also need data to work on in order to know that you're actually addressing the right things. And in the industry, we have a lot of safety clutter, things that takes a lot of focus away from the things that makes the difference in safety performance. And to know what you're really addressing is to make the change, then you need also data. And that is new tools are also opening up for more data to show that what is really making the difference in safety performance.
Thank you, Torkel. Catherine, I'd like to bring you in here. What role do regulatory frameworks play in establishing a strong safety culture for shipping?
Thank you, Richard. Regulatory frameworks are crucial to a strong safety culture in the maritime industry. Technology development and digitalization means new equipment, new technologies, new operations, and novel designs. And these changes require the assessment of potential risks, provision of relevant training, and implementation of appropriate procedures. So today, the International Maritime Organization, the IMO, is the global regulator for technical safety. And it is important that the IMO develops these common safety provisions for ships in international waters. And of course, in addition, national bodies that govern the maritime industry plays an important role in enforcing compliance with national safety standards. One of the newest additions to the international regulatory framework, this is a technical example, is the newly adopted IMO Code of Safety for ships carrying industrial personnel. The background for the new code is the growing offshore renewable energy sector, like wind farms offshore, leading to a need for industrial personnel being transferred from ships onto these installations. And this new code will, for example, ensure that there are safe means of transfer between the ship and the installation where these persons work, and that procedures are in place, that industrial personnel has received certain training. So these are mandatory regulation that becomes part of the international regulatory framework in July 2024. And it's really just one technical example that the regulatory framework establishes a common safety bar that are important in the sense that they set clear requirements and expectations for what constitutes safe design and safe practices. Thank you.
Okay, let me move to Jeff. The second part of that question was what changes may be needed to ensure that regulations remain relevant and effective in a transforming industry?
Well, an international regulatory framework, the shipping industry would be in total chaos without it. But they are minimum standards. At least there is a standard. The problem, as I see it, is one of the variable implementation, because the standard that is implemented varies from flag state to flag state and region to region, and hence we have that term race to the bottom and flags of convenience. But the sort of regulations we're talking about are SOLAS and MARPOL, ISPS and the ISM code. And the ISM code, of course, is a license for ship owners when they comply to operate. So an international regulatory framework is absolutely essential. But changes need to be made, in my view, to remove the variable so that there is a harmonization of the process, so that all flags and classification societies implement at the same standard, if you like, a gold standard, rather than this huge variable that currently exists. And that, I think, is the challenge, that the spirit of these regulations from the IMO are applied evenly. So that is the challenge and the ongoing challenge, particularly with decarbonization coming in. And it was interesting to hear your comments that this report highlights the safer that the industry is becoming. But with the introduction of alternative fuels, which is upon us in this fourth industrial revolution, I think we're going to see some severe safety challenges. So there's going to need to be a huge change, again, in safety recommendations for the introduction of these fuels, which is upon us, which presumably will take place this year at the MSC, at the IMO. So it's a huge challenge for the future, and I wouldn't be surprised if we will see some incidents arising with these new fuels.
Thank you, Jeff. Himanshu, if I can ask you a question about near-miss reporting. One of the things we've discovered on our safety culture report is that occasionally officers fail to report near misses for whatever reason. How can we encourage the reporting? Because it's a safety issue, isn't it? And it promotes continuous improvement in safety management.
Thanks, Richard. Yes, whilst near-miss reporting is important, I think the industry needs to move a little bit more beyond that and focus more towards improving the communication between ship and shore in general. So if the staff on board feel that they can share all that happens on board without being judged, and any actions proposed by them are openly discussed, reporting for near-miss will also automatically improve. It is important for every employee to feel empowered to report safety violations and stop unsafe work. In a good safety culture, reporting of safety violations should be encouraged. In fact, it should even be rewarded. Our behaviors in general are based on our past experiences. This is also called the antecedent behavior consequences theory, the ABC theory. And if employees see that safety issues are promptly and correctly handled by the superiors, they automatically realize that the organization is serious about safety matters. Conversely, if safety issues are being neglected, then the employees will believe that lack of safety is acceptable in the organization. So it is for this reason that immediate action on safety issues in general is needed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Himanshu. Let's talk about data analytics and other advanced technologies. Øystein, let me bring you in at this point. How can shipping use data analytics to understand as well as mitigate risks?
Yeah, thank you, Richard. Yes, as I mentioned earlier, I think now the safety related to decarbonization and digitalization is actually moving fast up on the agenda in the owner and operators boardrooms and leadership meetings, because there is an awareness that there is a gap there, and things are moving fast. Decarbonization is taking place very fast with new technologies and new fuels. And this drives also a need for digitalization and keep an eye on digital transformation, because transformation needs change and change management, and that's a leadership task typically. And so safety and safety culture is on the agenda. And then we have to look at digitalization, automation, and data analytics as means to improve safety. And this is looked upon in many ways now. I touched upon it earlier. There is now possibility to monitor much more the behavior of the ship and the performance of the ship system, so that you can do health checks. And also you have the ability now to get relevant data onshore and analyze it. So we have seen now that many customers, especially those who have passengers on board, for example, they are now looking into more dynamic risk management, so that they can actually get the risk picture of the vessel and intervene proactively on safety. So this is possible to do. You can have Power BI reports crunching the data. You combine data and you get much more insight into safety that way. And then obviously there are also other implications of this, which is sort of beyond the technology side. The organization is developing. There are new ways of working. You put maybe a responsibility which previously was on the vessel is now sort of also in place onshore, and there is a dialogue onshore and with the vessel. And this calls for sort of looking into the roles and competence standards in shipping, so that we don't get a conflict between decision making, for example. So these are some things which is focused upon. And first we see sort of the safety gaps, and then we start to close them using digitalization and analytics, and to use much more learning from the vessel than previously, really, due to connectivity and smart vessels. So actually there are a lot of things ongoing there, and I think we can also touch upon what is discussed quite a lot now in the industry is artificial intelligence and machine learning, for example. Very often this is looked upon as a threat. But also artificial intelligence is now used, for example, for object recognition with the camera, and can be a really good decision support tool during navigation. And machine learning is in many ways now used, for example, in navigation as well, to sort of support the decision making on navigation. And we will see now, maybe next year, couple of years ahead, the first collision avoidance systems coming on board the vessels, which will be similar to what we have now in modern cars. So you can sort of, it's the hen and the chicken. We have to decarbonize. We have to use data, and then we can use the data positively to improve safety.
Thank you very much. Himanshu Chopra, let me bring you in from the ship manager's perspective. What challenges must be addressed if we are to fully realize the potential of the tools that Øystein has been talking about?
Thanks, Richard. I think the challenges really are with regards to the data reliability and the data connectivity. I personally feel that the data output needs to be identifiable, reliable, and standardized. There is no standardization for generating data strings from different manufacturers today. And this makes integration of information from two separate sources a bit difficult at times. And we also heard Øystein and Torkel mentioning about harnessing data ashore, which basically means that ships could be generating 50 to 100 GB of data per day, which needs to now come ashore. And sadly, the typical price for a VSAT connection even today is, say about a 1 Mbps connection is around $1,800 US. And for a 4 Gbps connection at home is only 125. So cost in relation to data connectivity definitely could be better. So these two, the data reliability and data connectivity, are two things that really need to be looked into. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Himanshu. Catherine, just a final question to you, if I may. How can the industry work with governments and non-government organizations and all the stakeholders to establish common standards and promote a safety culture?
Thank you, Richard. There are many ways to get engaged in the development of the regulatory framework, but common safety standards require that collaboration and transparency in relation to potential safety risks. So work closely with flag states, regulatory bodies to develop the regulatory framework based on actual needs. Cooperate with other industry stakeholders to share information, develop best practices, participate in industry forums, conferences to share knowledge and exchange idea. And last but not least, work with classification societies on matters of common interest. Classification societies are on the verification and assurance side of the requirements. And they continuously develop technical requirements and verification methodologies to establish satisfactory evidence that the requirements are met. And we're seeing a trend today that the requirements tend to become more goal-based to account for new technologies, new fuels, novel designs, and the methodologies developed by classification societies can establish assurance that these new novel designs and new technologies are satisfactorily safe. It is important that class societies, owners, operators, and regulators work closely together to promote a culture of safety in the shipping industry through common safety standards. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think you said all that without saying the word collaboration, but collaboration is the thread that pulls all through a safety culture. Thank you to Catherine. Thank you, Torkel, Jeff, Himanshu, and of course, Øystein. The rapid pace of technological development and the urgent need to introduce new fuels will not only make it harder for safety guidelines and regulations to keep up, but they'd also put pressure on seafarer training academies and online training providers to stay abreast of safety requirements. Companies without a strong safety culture are likely to fall furthest behind. And the problem is that the consequence will be damage to the environment, to the ship, to the cargo, and most critically, of course, the loss of life. Understanding the various elements of a safety culture, how they fit together and support one another, and how the gaps between them can be covered, lies at the heart of safe shipping in this era of transition. You can access the Lloyd's List DNV Maritime Safety Trends report by scanning the QR code on the screen right now. Thank you for listening, and I wish you safe shipping.